It's Thursday, March 11th, 2021. This is Roqe. She is an icon of Iranian law and history in the last half-century, a professor, author, and a celebrated activist for the promotion of democracy. She was one of the first female attorneys to oppose the Islamization of gender relations following the revolution of 1979. Mehrangiz Kar has been at the epicenter of change, ideas, and tragedy inside Iran and in the diaspora. And she has agreed to a very personal interview today about her life, experiencing loss, and lessons learned moving forward. Mehrangiz Kar joins us in the Roqe Studio, plus Chef Hoss is here as well. This is stories from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode number 92 of Roqe. How are you? Che khabar? Less than 10 days until Nowruz. Get your nice pants pressed now. Welcome to those of you listening around the world. Durud ba shoma, khosh omadid. Hope you're all doing okay. Hope you are mizun and you are ready for another edition of Roqe. I'm very honored to have Mehrangiz Kar doing an in-studio interview with us. You know, a lot of people will know her name and know her strength and voice when it comes to addressing, say, the legal system and injustice in Iran over the years, but she's agreed to do something very different today and take a very personal look at her life, her journey, starting off in Ahvaz as a kid, everything from her own time in prison to the tragic loss of her prominent husband during his incarceration. It is a lot. I'm honored to have her here and to listen to her today. I should note, speaking of listening, that this interview we've agreed is going to be in English and Farsi. So if you do not speak Farsi, you may want to make sure you're listening on one of our platforms where we will have subtitles. Captain Reza will be furiously typing away. YouTube and Instagram is where we'll have English subtitles. If you want to listen to us on Telegram, in fact, Telegram is the channel where we actually do our descriptions and everything in Farsi. So if you prefer the Farsi, just go straight to Telegram. And of course, our popular channels, Spotify, SoundCloud, and you can find us on iTunes and Castbox as well. So if you want to read the subtitles, YouTube and Instagram. Hello, Groovy Shaya.
Salam, hi.
Salam. Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
Captain Reza, hello.
Hello, sir.
So we're down a team member today, the fabulous Kian. Not so fabulous in terms of the way she feels today. She texted me this morning and said she's feeling nauseous and she can't get out of bed, not feeling so well. Nauseous, Shaya, nauseous. She's not coughing. Shaya is so paranoid about the COVID. Because the fabulous Kian is not feeling well, instead we have Ponta the artist here for the first time at the microphone. Hello.
Hello.
It's
my
Just
first time.
talk right into the microphone there.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry. Hello. It's my first time here.
Now you've said that you're a bit nervous about talking in English.
Yes.
But I should note that you have come so far. I mean, you've been with us at Roqe. Let me actually explain to people. Ponta the artist is an artist, but she's also recognizable as a longtime host of a tech show on Tava.tv. So if you've ever seen that show, you'll recognize Ponta. We're lucky to have her here since the start of Roqe, running our graphics and our website and bringing her artistry to the show. But you didn't speak a lot of English when we started, and I think your English has gotten a lot better. It's very good, in fact.
I don't think so, but if you say, okay.
All right. Well, if you want to speak in Farsi at some point, I can tarjuma because my Farsi is so good. It'll be,
آره توی مدت فارسی شما خیلی بهتر شده.
ببین, see, yeah. Panta is saying your Farsi is perfect. It's immaculate. There's nothing better than your Farsi, is what she's saying.
Exactly.
You know, speaking of you being Panta the artist, you did it was Behruz Vosuqi's birthday. Yesterday, I think?
Yesterday.
And you did this beautiful drawing of him. I thought that was very nice.
Yes.
I saw it on your Instagram.
Yes, that painting is for a year ago.
Oh, I see. So you were just posting it yesterday, but you didn't actually do it yesterday.
Yes, because I'm always at Roqe, and I don't have time.
I see. I knew this would turn into complaining about.
Turn it around.
No, it's not complain. I enjoy to work with Roqe.
Yes, but you can't make pictures of Behruz Vosiqi anymore.
Yeah, I don't have enough time.
Here was my problem with it. Okay, here was my issue. My issue was I really liked it. I thought it was a great picture, but I was thinking it was Captain Reza's birthday only like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I didn't see any painting of him.
Where's my portrait?
خب آقای کپتن رضا ما که نمیدونستیم یه روز صبح اومدی گفتی که تولدمه ما بادکنکاشو دیدیم همین.
Panta is saying that we didn't know it was Captain Reza's birthday. So you're saying if you knew, you would have created a beautiful portrait of Captain Reza as well.
Well, let's mark that down, February 10th. Next year I want a portrait.
You should wait for the next year.
It's nice to have you, Panta the artist, and I know you're partly here because we'll talk about Chef Hoss in a minute. I want to mention, join our Roqe community. If you like what we do on this show, check out our website, roqemedia.com. You can become a patron, right, Panta?
What?
So am I subtitling this as well?
This is going really well so far.
نه داری با یه انرژی میگی من یه دفعه میگم
You can become a patron. People can become patrons, right?
Yes.
I'm just telling them that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
من نمیدونستم الان چی باید اضافه کنم.
Well, that's all. That you just say yes. You just
Yes, you can.
We depend on you guys out there. It's just $5 or $10 a month. How about this? I'll say this in English and then you repeat it in Farsi for the audience. For just $5 and $10 a month, you can support Roqe.
میتونید با $5 یا $10 توی هر ماه میتونید روک رو ساپورت کنید.
Yeah, we decided to crowdsource this and keep it as commercial free as we can.
این سخت بود.
So for $5, $10 a month makes a big difference to us. We'll keep going with this exploration of the connective tissue of Iranian diaspora identity. We want to do this with as few commercials and ads as possible. So $5 or $10 a month, roqemedia.com. Support us. We notice who signs up, and we really appreciate it. Thank you to you guys who have become patrons and sign up to subscribe and help us out. We have the Chef Hoss coming up. And Chef Hoss, I'm excited about this because I've seen the video already, which we'll be posting. Each week now, he posts a video helping people, teaching us elements of Persian cuisine. So the subject is limu amoni today.
Limu amoni.
Okay, here we go. Limu amoni.
Yeah.
Thank you. Limu amoni. Anyway, it's dried limes. And for people who, most people who listen to this show are Persian or have some affiliation with being Iranian. So you guys already know this. But for those who don't, in a lot of our cuisine, we use these dried limes. And say you make korma sabzi, you can put them in. You can put it in ash. You can, which give this. What's that?
I'm sorry, qeymeh.
Qeymeh, of course, that's right. And I've always bought them. Like I always buy the dried, the limu amoni. Chef Hoss is going to teach us how to dry the lime, how to actually buy fresh limes and make limu amoni. Isn't that cool?
I thought the limu of limu amoni is the special limu.
Apparently
the
not.
limes?
It's not?
No,
Yeah.
they're just regular limes that have been dried.
Seriously?
I think so. According to Hoss's video. But we'll get to Chef Hoss coming up. Speaking of Hoss, he, when he's not on Roqe the rest of his time, he supposedly has a job as the chef, the executive chef for Google, but the rest of the time he's on Clubhouse, He's just hanging out on Clubhouse. Anyway, we are going to do Captain Reza, are you going to be on Clubhouse by tomorrow?
You know what? I don't know about tomorrow, but I'm gonna
It's
change
not
my phone.
you. All you have to do is get. First of all,
you gotta get an iPhone.
your girlfriend has an iPhone.
Yeah.
So use her iPhone and set up your little thing. We want you
I
on
don't
our.
know. That's invasion of privacy. I don't want to touch your phone.
Just
Okay.
can I add something?
Yes, please, sponsor.
Last
Sponsor
night,
the artist.
Thank you.
Yes.
Last night I asked people in one room,
Yeah, in
one
Clubhouse.
friendly room in Clubhouse. They said there is a beta version of this application only for Android, and now just the only issue is you can't speak on this beta version, but every couple days
there's a version of this app that is about speaking to each other that doesn't allow you to speak.
Yes.
Great.
Doesn't sound like a better version.
نه یعنی که همش داره update میشه.
I don't think they've figured it
download
out for Android yet, because I think it's not available to people on. Anyway, for those who don't, I think everybody's starting to learn what Clubhouse is, but we're all relatively new to it. It's an audio platform where you go and you can talk to people around the world. You just walk into an audio room and start talking to people. Last night, actually, it was weird. Somebody pinged me and said, "Come in this room," and so I went there, and there was 3,000 people, and it was they were talking about doing interviews, so it would seem like a natural for me, I guess. That's why they asked me. And Hamed Nikpeh was there, and Sina Valiola, and Maximini, and Tehran, and yeah, it was an amazing group of people. It was really, and for the first time I went, oh, this is Clubhouse. I can't imagine this group coming. Rana Rahimpour. It was a fabulous group of people.
Who was managing the group? Do you know?
A few different people were moderating it. Fardad was there. A lot of, anyways. It was a very instructive, because I thought, oh, this is the magic of Clubhouse. All these people can end up in one place. Anyway, last week we did our first Roqe room on Friday night. So we're going to make this a Friday night tradition. So tomorrow night, or today, depending on if you're listening to this on a Friday, we have a Roqe Town Hall. And I was thinking about because earlier this week we had Hoda Jarrah on, and you can listen to that episode, our last episode of Roqe, and we've put up a couple of videos of it. And I was thinking that she comes from, part of what her incredible story is that she's this pioneering bodybuilder who's now in the United States, but she comes from a conservative Muslim family that had intentions for who she should be, how she should lead her life, and that made me think about Persian parents and Persian parental pressure, which we end up talking about a lot on this show. With almost every guest, it's kind of a they're either a doctor or engineer, or they were supposed to be a doctor or engineer. So tomorrow night's Roqe Town Hall on Clubhouse, the pattern of Persian parental pressure.
I like that.
That's my title, and we'll see who comes into the room and have a conversation. Ponte, I should note, you have a story of your own about coming out of Iran. I mean, you're one of those people who really did want to leave. Mm-hmm. You ended up, I think, first you were in India, and then you were in Europe for a while. You spent years in France, and now you've
Armenia, Turkey.
Armenia, Turkey, and you're not even that old. You did all these things, and now you've sort of reunited with your family in Canada after years of being on your own, right?
Yes.
But why? But you really wanted to leave Iran.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you don't want to go back.
No.
Right. You're in that
till it's the same situation. No.
Right. While it's the same government and all of that, you're not interested. Well, anyway, and did you feel, you're an artist? I think you have liberal parents, though, or did you ever feel pressure that you have to become a doctor or engineer?
Never.
Oh, yeah. Well,
never.
Consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, one of the kind. No, I totally did. I totally felt the pressure. Not only that, I feel like my parents were like that, but I think in general, Persian parents have this certain image of how their children's life ought to be.
Yeah.
And they get sort of disappointed if that image is shattered or somehow interrupted by
sort of disappointed. I mean, it's basic. It's close to disowning. It's like, get out of here, kid.
Yeah, that's understatement.
Or it's the thing where they say, Mikhail piano bezani azizam, that's great, no problem. You like to play piano. Just finish your PhD first, become a structural engineer first, and then you can play the piano, right? I mean, that's the refrain, is always a doctor or engineer kind of thing. And this is something that, obviously this is not unique to Persians in the sense that parents of all stripes universally around the world have aspirations for their children, and but there is some particular ingredient that jacks it up a little bit when it comes to being Iranian, that's why it comes up all the time, and there's a lot of pressure associated with that can be unhealthy.
Yeah, very unhealthy.
You have to, in the case of Hoda, which was the precipitant for this thought, because we just did the interview on Monday, she literally had to break out of her family shell. She had to get out, as if she's captured somewhere. And that's so you should consider yourself lucky, Ponta, that you never faced that.
Yes, my mom couple times she told me, I like if you wanna be a doctor, I like you choose چشم پزشک,
an eye doctor or something.
Yes.
And what did you say?
She knew I'm an artist.
Right.
And always she supported me to piano classes, I don't know, everything in art. She supported me.
You know why? Because you're Ponta the artist. That's your name.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Ponta the artist, Captain Reza, Groovy Shy. We're going to actually clear the room because we've got Mehrangiz Kar coming in. So we'll see you guys in a little bit with Chef Hoss.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
job. You did okay?
Seriously?
Yes,
Yeah.
you did okay. Let's get to our feature guest. All right. My feature guest today is a leading attorney, a professor, and author. She is also a celebrated activist working towards the promotion of democracy, rule of law, and human rights in Iran. Mehrangiz Kar was born in Ahvaz, Iran. She moved to Tehran to study at the Faculty of Law and Political Science at the University of Tehran and graduated with a law degree in 1967. Mehrangiz was one of the first female attorneys to oppose the Islamization of gender relations following the Iranian Revolution of 1979. She became an active public defender in Iran's civil and criminal courts. In the year 2000, Mehrangiz attended a conference at the Heinrich Böll Institute in Berlin entitled Iran After the Elections. Upon her return to Iran, she was arrested, taken to Evin prison, and sentenced to 4 years in jail. Following that episode, since the early 2000s, she has relocated to the United States. She has been a Radcliffe Fellow at Harvard University and has served as a fellow at the National Endowment for Democracy, the Woodrow Wilson Center, the American University in Washington, D.C., the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Columbia University, and the Carr Center for Human Rights Policy at Harvard's John F. Kennedy School of Government. Mehrangiz is the recipient of many international awards, including the 2002 International Human Rights Prize, the 2000 Penn Novib Award, and in 2004 she was honored by Human Rights First. She has also been recognized as a scholar at risk through an international network of universities and colleges working to promote academic freedom and to defend scholars worldwide. She is the author of numerous articles and more than 20 critically acclaimed books. She is a frequent media commentator on events in Iran and is working on 3 new books at present. But first, right now, Mehrangiz Kar joins me in the Roqe Studio today. Hello.
Hello.
And what a pleasure it is to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this. And, we agreed that I'll be asking the questions in English, but however you feel comfortable, including in Persian and Farsi, if you want to answer.
Thank you.
Mehrangiz, it's very difficult preparing for an interview with someone like you. I have to say, you've lived such an important and impactful life, and you have so much to say about politics, about human rights, contemporary issues, history. One barely knows where to start. I thought in this interview we would go a little more personal, your story, your feelings, and lessons that you have learned and can impart through the wisdom you've gained. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
You know, let me start by asking you then about the way you divide your life when you look back, because I've heard you say that there are two Mehrangiz periods, before and after the year 2000, which obviously was a very pivotal year, and I mentioned in the introduction what happened to you in 2000. But I'm wondering if there are actually three acts so far. Mehrangiz and her life before 1979, Mehrangiz and her work from 79 to 2000 in Iran, and then the period of the last 20 years predominantly outside of Iran. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Then let's go back to the Act 1 and how you became who you are. You were born in Ahvaz in the 1940s. It's where my family, you know this on my dad's side, was also from. What kind of kid were you growing up in Ahvaz?
I can describe myself. At that age, I was very weak, and all the time I was sick.
Really?
Yes.
You were a sick kid?
Yes, and allergic, allergic kid. And but I loved school. I loved learning.
Opinionated بودی اون وقت? Were you, did you?
No, I cannot. Inside myself, yes, but I was very shy kid, and I never talked loud, my thinking about everything or my opinion. Very conservative.
So in your early teens, for example, in Ahvaz, you would have never guessed that you would become somebody who people around the world know as a commentator in the media, as a leading attorney, as an outspoken person.
No, I could not predict my future. My goal was being a doctor.
Oh, you were going to be a doctor?
Yeah.
To please the family, or you were actually interested?
No. I was actually interested because in high school I chose tajribi like science. So my goal was that.
But I thought I had heard that you were interested in literature when you were young.
Yeah, literature was my
Passion.
But for my profession in future, I was doing so hard for being a doctor, medical.
پس چی شد؟
Concours.
Oh, Yani, you didn't get a good enough mark?
No, I couldn't.
Interesting.
I couldn't. But in law school and political school, I found
You excelled.
very good grade, and it was my second choice, not my first choice.
So do you still want to be a doctor?
Sometimes when I do not have money, and every day is like that.
You look at the family dentist and think I made the wrong choice.
I'm sorry that why I'm not doctor.
But where I was going with the opinions thing is that you've become so well known, not just for your opinions, but the strength of your character and what you fought for over the years. So when you were a kid, you said you had those opinions inside. I mean, what are your earliest memories? Did you remember looking at things and going, that's not right, that shouldn't be happening, that woman shouldn't be treated that way, or whatever it might be?
Yes, because, my opinion was very cultural more than political, because I couldn't understand what is, the best public policy or something like that, or what kind of government. I couldn't understand such a thing. But we had a situation around ourselves that very عقب مونده فرهنگی، عقب افتاده فرهنگی.
Culturally backward.
Culturally, yeah. We were living, the center of Ahvaz, and around us, those people, they were living, and their opinion to women was terrible. Every week I could understand that a woman or a daughter was killed around us.
Wow.
When we ask who killed her, I heard brother, father, or sometimes uncle,
Wow.
because she was doing something that was not traditional, like sexual relation with somebody else, except their husband or sometimes the daughter who they didn't have.
فامیل شما کنسرواتیو بودن؟
No.
No.
No,
You grew up in a liberal
فامیل من قاطی پاتی بودن. یعنی نمیتونم بگم. I cannot say that my family was very religious. I cannot say my family was laik or secular or such a thing. But, you know, nobody was denying Islam.
Including your family.
Including my family, especially my family, because my mother, if I want to explain that by our language now, I can say my mother was moderate Muslim, میانه رو, Islam میانه رو. My grandmom was radical Muslim.
Really?
Like Misbah Yazdi, Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi.
Wow. So what would your grandmother think of you now?
You know, she had not power when my mother was the boss of my family. She had not power. She couldn't ask me hijab by force because my mother was standing and my mother had hijab. But my mother didn't give permission to my grandmom to, you know, to say Mehri should be like that, like this. No, she couldn't do that.
You know, I was going to ask you whether you had female role models that shaped you. I remember speaking with Hoss Shar about her early years, and she's in Iran around the same time as you growing up, although she was born in Shiraz. And she said it was the strong women in her family that gave her the path and confidence to be a leader as a young woman. Was that true for you?
Yeah, it is true. My mother was very powerful, and she didn't go to school, modern school, but she could read Hafiz. She could read very well Quran, and sometimes without, you know, looking at Hafiz, میتونست حافظ رو از بر بخونه. ما میگفتیم اون موقع از بر، یعنی تو حافظش حافظ رفته بود.
Wow.
و مثلا توی خونه ما یه اتفاقی که افتاده بود، 2 زن توی این خونه حکومت میکردن. My mom and my grandmom.
And they would sometimes conflict with each other.
Yeah, conflict each other. One was my mom.
Yes.
with Hafiz. برای اینکه زنای محله همه ناراحت بودن، نگران بودن، گرفتاری داشتن و اون طبقه متوسط پایینم بودیم ما. نمیتونم بگم توی طبقات بالا بودیم، طبقه متوسط پایین بودیم. اون موقع طبقه بالا هم باز فرقی نمیکرد. دوست داشتن فال بگیرن، ببینن سرنوشتشون، حال و احوالشون چجوری میشه. مادر من قبول میکرد که برای اینا فال حافظ بگیره و بعد خودش ترجمه میکرد حافظ رو، یعنی اینکه تفسیر میکرد براشون. اینترپریتیشنی میداد که مثلا مربوط میشد به زندگی اون، به احوال اون. این یک حوزه قدرت بود اونجا که طبیعتاً فالوور می آورد. زنایی که می شدن فالوور و می اومدن نوبت می گرفتن و اون برشون فال می گرفت. قدرت میاره دیگه. شما هرچی ارتباطت بیشتر باشه با کامیونیتی قدرتمند میشی. خب این زن اینجوری قدرتمند شده بود.
ولی اینجا هم یه چیزی there's something interesting about that I know, of course, I'm not the first one to say this, and there's books and books and books written about this that you'd be more familiar with, but I've always found there's an interesting paradox in the way we talk about Iran, not just in historically, but even now, and a patriarchal society, and women being repressed, and you know, women not having the legal power, etc. And yet, when I think of most Iranian families, the center of power in the family is usually the mother. The strongest person in the family is usually
correct.
the woman.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting
Yeah.
dichotomy. Can
Yeah.
you speak to that?
Yeah, my mother was very powerful, and you know, I can say during the time she was intellectual because she was looking at Iranian daughters, and she was saying me and not advising me but forcing me that you should be in the future prime minister.
Wow.
And I couldn't understand what is that, why I should be. When I was 7 years old, 6 years old, I couldn't understand what is that. And another woman, my grandmom was استخاره میکرد. استخاره میدونی
نه
چیه؟
استخاره
آها،
چیه؟
مثلا تو میخوای بری دکتر بشی، میگه بر من استخاره کن بیبی، ببین من مثلا این کار بکنم یا نه. بعد اون برای مردم استخاره میکرد. اونا میومدن، اونا که خیلی مسلمون بودن، اونایی که دنبال عشق و عاشقی و مثلا شوهرشون حالا رفته بود با یه زن دیگه، نمیدونم از این کارا، میبرن پیش مادر من، اون براشون فال حافظ میگیره. پس ببینین دوتاییشون سنتر یه بخشی از کامیونیتی بودن. بنابراین قدرت داشتن در این حال که پول نداشتن، ولی یک قدرت ارتباطی داشتن.
So it wasn't really a surprise that Mehrangiz Kar ends up going to College of Law and Political Science at Tehran University with the strong kind of role models that you had. You do that, you graduate in the late 1960s, you start working at the Institute of Social Security, and you start publishing opinion pieces and advocating for change. What were this is pre-revolution, so this is the Shah's time.
Yes.
Mehrangiz, what were the main human rights concerns for you in the 1970s, for example, in the years before the revolution?
Yeah, years before the revolution, because we could be aware about the events that was happening all over the world, like Vietnam war, hippies, Beatles, and some reaction of war policy of Western government, like the United States, like the Europe. And I was reading a lot the history of Iran and the history of some other, and you cannot believe that بینوایان، کتاب بینوایان که همه چیز ترجمه شده بود در اونجا به فارسی. و مثلا من از 13 سالگی 12 سالگی من این کتابا رو میخوندم، واقعا میخوندم و یک نالیج به من داده بود. یعنی اون نالیج من، اون چیزی که من از هیستوری میگرفتم، از لیترچر میگرفتم، حالا با اینکه زبون نمیدونستم، از خانواده‌ای نبودم که به من کمک بکنن برای اینکه زبان یاد بگیرم، ولی اینا به من یه طرز فکر داد، یه سبک زندگی توی مایندم داد. حالا هرچند که بیرون از اون ما نمیتونستیم اونو پرکتیس کنیم، ولی اونو به من داد که خب این بینوایان رو چی زیاد فوکوس میکنه، روی فقر، روی این چیزی که بین فقر و ثروت هست، خب این چجوری باید منیج بشه که این تغییر بکنه. اما من هرگز مارکسیست نشدم، چون نمیدونم، حتی اون موقع هم فکر میکردم این یه چیز خیلی قشنگه، تو ذهن منم شکل گرفته بود، ولی هیچ وقت فکر نمیکردم این بتونه عملی بشه. اما طرز فکر من به سمت جامعه بی طبقه رفته بود.
You understood class structure from books and Les Miserables, etc., but you weren't necessarily a leftist or a Marxist.
Yeah.
What did you want to change about Iran at that time, in the late 60s, early 70s, when you were writing opinion pieces? What would you say your focus was?
Yeah, I could not believe that a revolution, especially Islamic revolution, could be happened in that country. Probably because we had been very far from Qom and the history that was shaping in Qom. And after revolution, I could understand what was happening in Qom during the time that we were talking about women's rights and equality between men and women. When I was reading کتاب منتظری خاطرات منتظری memoir of Ayatollah Montazeri, I could understand that we had been very far from realities in Iran, and Khomeini was doing a lot and the best in Qom, not just against Shah but against us.
Let me hang on though. Let me get to the revolution, but I'm still stuck on this part that مثلا 10 سال قبل از انقلاب. You know, it's not, no one's anticipating the revolution just yet. But you were trying to effect change. You were outspoken at that point. What was it that you wanted? What were the kinds of things that you wanted to change about Iran at that point, before the inqilab?
Okay. If you mean in dream, I was looking for very good change toward democracy. But I don't know why. I could understand that it is not possible pretty soon. And I could understand that just we can see something in the future like انقلاب like کودتای نظامی مثل اون چیزایی که توی آمریکای لاتین اتفاق میفته. چون ما خیلی زیاد به آمریکای اتفاقا لاتین نگاه میکردیم تا مثلا به اسلام نمیدونم رادیکال یا یعنی اینتלקتوهای اون موقع به شیلی نگاه میکردن، به آرژانتین نگاه میکردن. ما نگاهمون اصلا به این سمت نبود. خب برای فلسطینیا و به اسرائیل و اینا ما تو همون کانسپتی واقعا فکر میکردیم که خب فلسطینی ها مظلومن، اسرائیلی ها خونه هاشون گرفتن، اونجوری هم فکر میکردیم. بنابراین من نمیتونم بگم که خیلی فکر منسجم و مشخصی برای تغییر در ایران داشتم.
Were you happy with Iran in the early 70s مثلا؟
No, I was not.
Because it wasn't a democracy in the kind of way.
One was that, and one was something that happened in 1953, the coup of
Mossadegh.
Against Mossadegh.
Yes.
And I guess all shaping our mind, political mind, is coming from that event. It was very important to us because I was very, very small, and I was in Tehran with my mom, and I was on the street when everything was changed. And I could see the people that today they were saying مرگ بر شاه زنده باد مصدق, and the other day they were saying زنده باد شاه مرگ بر مصدق. So some political thing in my mind was clashing each other, and I could not understand why today they are saying that and the other day they were saying that. I could not, I could not focus such a thing.
Did people know you by the 1970s in the public? Would the Shah's people know that there's this person creating trouble, Mehrangiz Kar?
No, I was very small.
But what you resign from the Institute of Social Security in 1977, and you start your legal career. This is a couple of years before the inqilab, before the revolution.
Yes.
Why did you resign? Why did you start then your legal career?
It was my goal to become a lawyer. Yeah, I educated in law school. I was 23 years old. But the minimum age for going to bar association and asking for license and such a thing, I was 23, but the age was 25. And that's why I couldn't register.
For everyone or
that.
Just for women?
No, for everyone.
Huh.
For everyone. And now it's like that, I think. But 2 years, I was going and getting a job and I couldn't stop it because I had not enough money, to continue and to resign.
But you never thought of going back to Ahvaz. By that point, you're in Tehran, and
just to visit.
Right.
Just to visit.
Mehrangiz, put us on the ground around 1979 when the revolution happened. You're there. You're a lawyer then at this point. As you said, no one was anticipating that this was going to become the Islamic Revolution that it did. Were you among those intellectuals, the majority, in fact, who thought, actually, maybe this is going to be positive? This is going to be a positive change in Iran. Were you advocating for it? Did you want this?
No, never. And this is something negative in my background for revolutionary people. Because I never followed them, but of course I didn't like Shah regime, and sometimes that Khomeini ordered for اعتصاب مطبوعات. I didn't follow him. We didn't care about this order, and that's why the Syndica of journalists in Iran که اسمش بود اون موقع سندیکای خبرنگاران و نویسندگان مطبوعات، در اونجا they didn't like my موضع‌گیری. یعنی
a lot of the intellectuals who would be advocating for revolution must have been quite disappointed in you.
That's why they
چرا که مثلا you're not joining us and
and my punishment was writing something against me. نشریه‌ای داشتن که یه نشریه داشتن که مال این سندیکا بود. بعد منو مثلا تنبیه پانیشمنت یه کسی مثل من این بود که منو به عنوان کسی که تخلف کرده از یک اعتصابی با درج در روزنامه اون سندیکا که اون بهترین داکیومنتی شد بعداً برای دادگاه یا به هر حال نیروهای امنیتی یا مثلا برای آقای حسین شریعت مداری روزنامه کیهان که پس من اساساً نیچر ضد انقلاب بودم، آنتای ریولوشن، اسلامیک ریولوشن بودم. خب این همیشه بود و من هیچ وقت تصور نمی کردم اینقدر این توجه داشته باشن بشه. ولی بعدا عکسای بی‌حجاب منم که توی مطبوعات دوران شاه، موهام همین قدی بود، یه وقتایی که بهش میگفتن اون موقع گوگوشی، ولی الان دیگه گوگوش اینجوری نیست، ماها همون گوگوش موندیم. اون خیلی خوشگله و موهای قشنگی داره ولی موهای ما سفید شده.
But you were one of those people who was caught in the middle then. You weren't necessarily a taraftar Shah, but because you were also not pro-revolution, you were stuck in with nobody supporting you.
Because I could understand that, because I think I had read very well the history of Iran, and I could understand that this is something against Mashrute. This is something انقلاب مشروطه, constitutional revolution of Iran. I could understand that with Khomeini and following Khomeini, we cannot get something better. But I couldn't believe that اینقدر بد که الان میبینیم. یعنی با اینکه من مخالف بودم و نمیرفتم توی دستجات انقلاب خمینی، از بازم اینجا حرف از مادرم بزنم که مادرم یک روز ایستاد و گفت اگر تو دنبال خمینی بری من خودم آتیش میزنم. و بعد که من خندیدم گفتم من نمیرم دنبال خمینی، گفت این چادر سرتون میکنه. باز من خندیدم.
You wouldn't believe it.
No. گفت میکنه. شماها آخوند نمیشناسین. بنابراین
چقدر روشنفکر مادرتون بودن.
خیلی بودن ولی زورشون نمیرسید. یعنی جو سنگین بود، یه اتمسفری بود که اون اتمسفر رو هیچ کس باش کاری نمیتونست بکنه. ما هم خطر میکردیم. I was at risk at the time.
Well, this is where your second act begins, since I've divided your life into these three acts for now. And you've passed your bar exam. You're licensed to practice law. This is before the revolution. But then the revolution happens and Iran's judiciary is taken over by the clerics and the whole judicial system changes. How did all of this affect your role as a defense lawyer, and especially as a female attorney?
It was very difficult because I couldn't go and talk to judge because he was not looking at me and just saying, "What do you want, khahar, sister?" And after 2 years, I could understand how I can talk to them, how I can act.
How did you figure that out?
You know, I آره این خیلی زیاد میشه اگه بخوام بگم، ولی تند میگم. من رفتم به بار اسوسییشنی که دیگه این بار اسوسییشن نبود دیگه. هیئت مدیرش که قبلا الکتد بودن حالا الکتد نبودن، همه زندان بودن دیگه. ما آفیسی نداشتیم به عنوان بار اسوسییشن که بگیم ما ممبر اونجاییم. ولی رفتم به یک سرایداری که اونجا شده بود حالا همه کاره، گفتم اسم منو بده به دادگاه‌های کریمینال که من حاضرم برای اونایی که پول ندارن به هر تعدادی کیس قبول کنم. این قدم بزرگ من بود و واقعا این میتونه درسی باشه برای زنایی که گرفتار این ماجراهای طالبانی و داعشی تو کشورشون میشن. خیلی درس مهمیه. از اون به بعد دیگه این قاضی‌ها با من یه جوری دیگه برخورد کردن و به نظرشون رسید که من یه زن خیلی پولداریم و نیکوکار. از طرف دیگه از منم حمالی میکشیدن، یعنی سرم سوار میشدن، بعد میگفتن چایی برای من تعارف میکردن، بعد میگفتن میتونی این پرونده رو برای من خلاصه کنی؟ من حوصله ندارم بخونم. میگفتم آره. اون وقت من با خوندن پرونده 2 تا فایده میبردم. یکی این که قاضیه با من دیگه دوست میشد، یعنی دوست میشد که راحت باش برابر مینشستم حرف میزدم. یکی این که من چیزای اسلامی رو از تو این پرونده ها یاد میگرفتم، چون میداد من بخونم، تنبل بود، خلاصه کنم. بنابراین من به تدریج اکسپت و ریسپکت شدم، ولی خیلی سخت بود.
خیلی. It's an amazing story. 2 steps back. To think that overnight these qazi, the judges that you talk about, basically go from respecting you to suddenly not respecting you because you're a woman, and now we're in the Islamic Revolution, Republic, etc. Were they the same judges in some cases that would suddenly change the way of acting, or was it different people?
Yeah, different. You know, all judges, they were welcome me. It is not just that or one judge, but all judges, they could be happy after this policy that I started.
So let me. You talked a moment ago about your mother saying to you, you know, they're going to make the hijab compulsory, and you guys laughing about it. Come on, that's not actually going to happen. I want to ask you about that. I mean, you have quite famously now been known as one of the first women attorneys to oppose the Islamization of gender relations following the revolution. Set the scene for us in this time when the laws changed. Because I remember back to my university thesis on the revolution at York University, and how at first actually many feminists believed this was going to be an emancipating change for Iran. There was even Khomeini at one point says, I'm going to advocate for women's rights, etc. What was the atmosphere like when new laws start to get passed, like compulsory hijab, masalan? When that started to happen, how did you deal with that from a legal standpoint?
Yeah, I'm sure that you know the first position, tazahurat, in Iran was making by women.
Yes.
In دادگستری، این کاخ دادگستری. خب منم جز به اونها بودم و پروتست میکردیم این موضوع رو به صورت مدنی، یعنی پیسفولی ما شروع کردیم. میشه گفت که اولین اعتراضای پیسفولی در ایران بعد از انقلاب رو زنان شروع کردن. در سطح کشور هم بود. هنوز کسی درست اینو تحقیق و بررسی نکرده. من تا یه حدودی در یک کتابی به نام شورش تا یه حدود کمی اینو گفتم. ولی انقدر سرکوب و ساپرس هیوی بود علیه ما که خب به زودی تونستن ما تو خونه هامون بمونیم، نیایم بیرون. و از طرف دیگه همونجور که میدونید به هر حال جمعیت ترادیشنال پیپلی که فالو میکردن خمینی رو خیلی زیاد بود، در اون اوایل انقلاب خیلی زیاد بود، آمدن و با یک تمی کار کردن women against women. It means that traditional women who were following without any question Khomeini, they organized them against us. And all the time they were inviting them to come to the street and give a slogan against bihijab, against زنان without hijab. And after گروگانگیری که سفارت امریکا رو رفتن گرفتن، دیگه ما شدیم یک سمبل هایی از امریکا. یعنی مرگ بر امریکا سمبلش مثلا زنای ماها بودیم که در زمان شاه بی‌حجاب مدرسه رفته بودیم، دانشگاه رفته بودیم، کار کرده بودیم. پس ما تو 2 فورس قرار گرفتیم. یکی این که میگفتن against Islamic values شما میخواین زندگی کنین، استایل ضد اسلامی رو داشته باشین، با مردم معاشرت کنین، تو کافه برین، سینما برین، موسیقی گوش کنین، تو پارتیا با مردم باشین. یکی دیگه هم امپریالیزم بود که حالا چپ ها هم با اون مچ شده بودن تا مدت ها و هیچ ایرادی نمی گرفتن. پس ما تو 2 چیز وسط 2 فشار قرار گرفتیم.
And when they start passing laws, they actually start making it the law که مثلا women can't sing, women can't, the hijab, etc. Was there any institutional way to fight this?
No,
or no.
No institutional. No institutional. Because, you know, and something that was bad during Shah was that we didn't have any independent political party. Because after Mossadegh, Shah couldn't accept such a thing. میترسید شاه از بعد از
So by the time the revolution happens, there's no levers for any kind of opposition, even when there's...
No, we couldn't organize that because immediately after victory of Islamic Revolution همه جوانای محل رو اینا تبدیل کردن به سولجرای خودشون. همه جوانا کمیته درست کردن که همه میترسیدن. یعنی بعدم که جنگ شد بلافاصله همه چیز ترس بود، همراه با ترس و مرگ و کشته شدن و دیگه ما اصلا رفتیم حاشیه. در مرکز زنای قرار گرفتن که بچه‌هاشون رو میفرستادن جنگ، زن شهید بودن، مادر شهید بودن. این یعنی زندگی ما دیگه زندگی خیلی درجه 2 حاشیه‌ای شد.
Everything that you had in your young life started to fight for was being taken away at that point. Yet you persist. In the years after the revolution, you begin writing about the basic principles of justice, human rights, equal rights for women. Your articles are published in the Women's Monthly Zanon, and also by the 1990s, you begin writing a series of books analyzing the various aspects of discrimination against women in Iran. In 1997, you published the book Political Rights of Iranian Women, in which you argue that Iranian women have no legal rights over their own children. Mehrangiz, in this period, I mean, I know that's a long period I've just described there, but in general, what was the reaction to this content that you would put out there in this period, either by the authorities or even by the general public? How did you get away with it, in a sense?
I could understand that if we don't be careful, they will kill us, like thousands people who they were killed during 60 Iran, 60 to 70. And I found a language for criticizing the legal system without, they can accuse me as kafir, as murtad against Islam.
What was that language?
That language was using of moderate clerics who they were giving us some better interpretation of Islamic text. And sometimes that I was asking them how I can criticize the age of mas'uliyat kayfari, criminal age for women that is 9 years old, and for men is 15 years old, or the age for marriage or something like that. And they were giving me very good interpretation of Islam. According that interpretation, I was able to criticize without accusing as kafir, as murtad. And they were saying that in that text, in that rawayat, in that hadith or something like that, we can change that in our legal system without doing anything against Islam, against Sharia. So this language was much better than laik.
And the regime believed that? Or
No, no. The
Right.
regime didn't believe that. All the time I was under pressure
Yeah.
from وزارت اطلاعات, from سپاه پاسداران, and
Yeah.
all the time they were coming to my office, and in office they were, investigating about everything, and
Yeah.
they were advising that you better be careful, you better don't talk about something like that, something like this, and we had been under control, but we could understand their ضعفاشون هم پیدا کرده بودیم. یعنی ما هم اونا رو شناخته بودیم، ما هم بلد بودیم چجوری با اینا حرف بزنیم. یعنی شما تا توی میدون نباشی، میدون جنگ نباشی، اصلا فکر نمی کنی که جنگجویی، اصلا فکر نمی کنی که ممکنه که بکشی. ما مثل اون آدمایی بودیم که وسط میدون جنگ بودیم ولی شمشیر نداشتیم. شمشیر ما این کارهایی بود که میکردیم. مثلا من شمشیرم این بود که برم بگم من از آدمای بی پول دفاع میکنم. شمشیر من این بود که بیام بگم آها فلان فقیه اینه گفته.
But even so, at that time, as you know better than anyone, they were imprisoning people, they were executing people
Yes.
for almost nothing. I mean, Shahnusha Parsipour was on the show
I
a couple
know.
of months ago.
I
mean,
know.
Panjdefa, 5 times they put
I
her in
know.
prison, they tortured
I
her, they
know.
and what was she doing? I mean,
Yeah.
she was writing novels, she was so it's I guess, I mean, this is sort of the obvious question that I'm sure you get tired of answering, but how do you, when in that period, how were you not afraid to do what you were doing?
I was afraid, but my passion was very, powerful and high. And I prefer stay in Iran and don't leave Iran. But I was careful, and I cannot say that, I was Jeanne d'Arc and I was saying something very bad against the regime. But I was alive.
Yes.
And my voice was heard.
And yet, after all of that, it's your attendance at a conference in the year 2000 that does end you up in jail, which is quite strange. I mean, this is April 2000 when you and 16 other prominent reform-minded Iranian intellectuals and activists attend this conference in Berlin. And for speaking at this conference, you come back to Iran, you're arrested right away. And what were you charged with?
Yeah, probably because you had not been in Iran, you cannot touch something that we touched it. Like, before we do have 2 جناح political جناح چی میشه به انگلیسی fraction.
Yes.
It was easier for us writing and talking against legal system in Iran. You know why? Because they couldn't accuse us that you are working with our enemy. Yeah, and conservative, when everything was, in the hand of conservative. And we didn't have something like reformist or moderate or something like that. Yes, they were coming to my office. I was under pressure. Everything like that was happening.
You're saying when there's no organized opposition,
No.
they don't see you as much of a threat.
Yes,
You're
yes.
just one person doing,
Yes, one
you're-
person doing. But after that, they were very afraid. Oh, Mehrangiz Kar or somebody else. They knew that we are laïc, we are secular, we are anti-revolution. But now we are supporting reform. We are supporting reformists who they believe that they are their enemy. So in one night, after one night, we moved from some women who were talking about women's rights or human rights تو اصلاح طلبان که اینا میگفتن که اینا دشمنای ما هستن و میخوان ما رو ببرن خودشون با آمریکا مذاکره کنن. این ترس همیشگی این رژیم اینه که مبادا اصلاح طلبا یا همین آدمای خودشون که هیچ مفتم نمیارزن، حالا ما کاملا میدونیم، مبادا اینا با آمریکا یک وقتی مذاکره کنن.
My mind, Mehrangiz, goes to the filmmaker Bahman Farmanara, who was on this program a few months ago, and he said something interesting that reminds me of what you're saying. I said, because he's in Iran still, and he says all kinds of things and makes these films, and he said, but I don't sign the petitions that everybody else signs. I don't put my name with everybody. So I'm just me, some guy who's attacking them, even though I have some profile and stuff. So it's kind of what you're saying. If you are not seen to be part of some kind of organized unit, you're not free, but they're not as concerned about you as if you're part of an organized. But why was this conference such a big deal?
It was, it was organizing by reformist people, reformist leaders, and بنیاد هنریشپال که بنیاد هنریشپال یک قسمت فرهنگی یه دیپارتمنت یا هر چیز فرهنگی حزب سبز آلمان بود. حزب سبز آلمان تا اون موقع ماینوریتی بود. در نتیجه به عنوان ماینوریتی دائما از ماجوریتی که حاکم بود ایراد میگرفت، انتقاد میکرد که چرا با یه حکومتی که میکونوس چون اتفاق افتاده بود در آلمان، چرا با حکومتی که میکونوس رو در این کشور چیز کرده شما دیل دارین، رابطه دارین. بعد همین ماینوریتی یهو شد مجوریتی، حکومت آلمان رو گرفت. وقتی شد مجوریتی حالا میگشت دنبال یه لجیتیمسی برای اینکه رابطهش رو با ایران همچنان وسیع‌تر کنه، بیشتر کنه. از نظر اقتصادی چون اروپا وابسته به ایرانه. در نتیجه اینا اومدن این کنفرانس رو ارگانایز کردن که حالا به افکار پابلیک اپینیون خودشون در آلمان بقبولانن که ایران عوض شده و ایران دیگه تروریست نیست، دیگه بیرون از ایران ترور نمیکنه. ما هم اصلا اینا رو نمیدونستیم، ما رو دعوت کردن و من اولین کنفرانسی بود که نترسیدم و رفتم، چون گفتم خب با خودشونم. و بعد که توی یه دادگاه به قاضی گفتم آقا چرا انقدر ما رو اذیت می‌کنید؟ ما که با خودتون رفتیم آلمان. گوشاش قرمز شد، گفت تو با خود ما رفتی، تو اینا رو از ما میدونین؟ گفتم خب آره. گفت یک دفعه دیگه این حرفو بزنی پوستتو میکردم. پس بنابراین ما افتادیم توی حفره‌ای که اصلا خودمون نمیفهمیدیم این حفره چیه. یعنی ما هر چقدر میفهمیدیم که این دوتا جناح با همدیگه مشکل دارن ولی باور نمیکردیم این مشکلشون در این حد باشه که اساساً اینقدر که اینا با رفرمیستا بد بودن، شاید میتونم بگم با من بد نبودن اگر که من نرفته بودم دنبال رفرمیستا. خیلی پیچیده است ایران، میدونی، خیلی پیچیده است.
You had at this point you would have known a lot of people who had been put in jail. You would have defended some of the people who would have been put in jail. What was it like for you going to prison?
خب من اصلا زندان نمیدونستم چیه، هیچ وقت زندان نرفته بودم، هیچ وقت نمیخواستم آدم این جور کاری باشم. مثلا خوشم نمیمد که دوست داشتم بمونم کار کنم، وایسم کار کنم، بشینم تو دفترم کار کنم. عقیده نداشتم، برای اینکه مگه اون کسایی که این همه آدم کشتن از اول انقلاب کیا بودن؟ اونایی بودن که تو زندانهای شاه بودن، اون همه شکنجه شده بودن. مگه مثلا اون آقایی که لاجوردی زندان اوین بیشترین شکنجه ها رو شده بود و خودش اونجور قاتلی عذاب دادم. مثلا عقیده نداشتم راستش رو بخوای به اینکه آدما وقتی برن زندان آدمای مهمی هن. من اصلا این عقیده رو نداشتم و بنابراین خودم نمیخواستم اینجوری مهم بشم. من میخواستم کار کنم و مهم باشم، یعنی کار روی صحنه، روی استیج بکنم و هیچ چیز مخفی هم نداشتم. ولی خب دیگه اینا وقتی جناحی بخوان کار بکنن، هر حکومتی که بخواد جناح درون خودشو، اپوزیسیون درونی خودشو، که اپوزیسیون ضد ولایت فقیه که نبود که. It was not really anti-Islamic republic. Just they were saying that wali faqih should be under control by law.
But you end up in Evin. Did you think that you're going to die? Were you terrified? Were you what was your reaction?
No, it was not easy. After 2 or 3 days I could understand that they are making fake file for my husband more than me.
Yes.
That was something that I became, scared.
I want to get to your husband. Let me just ask you this. When you're in prison, the story goes that you were diagnosed with cancer, and under pressure from the European Union and the Netherlands, you were released on bail after 53 days to undergo an operation and chemotherapy in Iran. Then you end up leaving Iran for the United States around that time. How did it happen?
Yeah, because I had green card, because my brother for a long time was living in the United States. My step daughter, was American, and they applied for me. I had green card since 1996.
But why would Iran let you go? I mean, why would the authorities in Iran allow you to leave?
Yeah,
they famously don't let anybody that they think is a problem leave, right?
And now I should explain something else for you that I'm sure you don't know. You cannot touch it. Sometimes they were doing something that like whitening. That we have lawyers in Iran, we have female lawyers in Iran. They are talking and you can hear their voice, but nobody knows that after any interview with BBC or VOA or writing an article or interviewing at my office with foreigner reporter, after that they were coming to my office, right. And I was under investigation and something.
So they let you talk a little bit to use you as some kind of symbol of openness.
It was positive for them.
Uh-huh.
It was positive for them, but it was limited. When we were going to break that limitation, they were.
Do you feel
talking.
like they used you?
Yes, because when in Berlin, I was saying that reform is not possible without having reform in constitution. It was something like red line, and I passed that.
But up until that point, they were okay for you to be saying these things as a demonstration that we allow dissent. We allow people to say things, and look, we have a female lawyer who's speaking out.
Without joining with reformist people, without joining like that, going to Berlin and talking aloud about Iran, who حقوق بشر رو نقض کرده در مدت 20 سالی که سر کار اومده اون موقع 20 سال بود. اینا رو من گفتم که these are something that I was saying aloud in front 7 دوربینای بزرگ خبرگزاریای بزرگ. خب برای اینا دیگه قابل تحمل نبود.
When you leave Iran at that point in the early 2000s then, did you think that you might never be able to go back? Did you have a sense of that?
No. I never.
You thought it might be a
that
temporary trip?
Because I was allowed with them. I had bail, big bail, and I didn't take with myself something. Just myself and Azadeh, who was teenager,
Your daughter, yeah.
underage, yes, and I was going to be far from them because I was involved with Saratan, with breast cancer. And between 6 months to 1 year, not more.
I ask you that because a few months ago, last fall, in our interview that we did about Nasrin Sotoudeh, you told me that Nasrin learned from people like you and Shirin Ebadi to not leave Iran. And I was thinking about that this whole month, knowing that I'm going to get to talk to you and thinking, I wonder, going back in time, no one would blame you for wanting to go to the States in the middle of being put in Evin and having a young family and having breast cancer, etc. But going back in time now, would you have made the choice to stay in Iran?
Yes. In myself, I think it was wrong to leave Iran even for better treatment or setting up Azadeh and everything, because when you leave Iran, mostly they fabricate file for you, and because they couldn't do that, and I had permission from radical Islamic in Revolutionary Court and others in conservatives, I was allowed, and I left Iran very legally. And I think it was mistake. And because I was under treatment, a little I was going to be weak. The medicine, chemotherapy, radiation, and everything that was around me. And I could not believe that after I leave Iran, they will kidnap my husband and get forced confession against me, morally, politically, spying, and everything that you can, imagine.
Well, you started talking about it there, so I want to ask you. I must ask you about your late husband, Siamak. You're writing a book about him as well, or
hopefully I do that.
You were arrested and interrogated in Iran, but you were never tortured the way he was. Siamak Porzan, your late husband, was arrested. He was savagely tortured. Why did they go after him so harshly?
He was coming from a family that all of them, since Reza Shah, they had been monarchists. So they could not, be comfortable with Siamak. But they didn't know all of them. I say all of them, all of نیروهای امنیتی, security forces. They didn't know that he is my husband.
How did they not know that?
Because they are not just one security center, one security agents. We do have many security agencies because, like a country that they do have many government, inside government.
So he's got a double strike against him all of a sudden. He's identified with the Pahlavis and the monarchists, and he's Mehrangiz Kar's husband.
Yes. In Berlin Conference, they could understand it, and Revolutionary Court, they had a very big file from Siamak. And the first step that I passed to office of judge, before I can sit, he said, do you know this person? There was a file, blue file, and on the cover was written, Siamak Purzand, Saltanat Talab, monarchist.
Yeah.
And he said, are you his wife? And I said, yes. And he was doing like that. So
He was nodding.
yeah, so
Like
it was the start. It was the start. And he was forcing me that I say, everything in Berlin was organized by Siamak Purzand.
Wow.
And I said, no, I cannot say such a thing. My husband didn't do any role in this event, and nobody invited him to Berlin conference. It was their goal for arresting me. And after that, they, in their investigating, all the time they were asking about Siamak, about background of Siamak, about background of Siamak in Hollywood, this artist, that artist. And as you know, he was for a while, I think, correspondent of Kayhan newspaper in Hollywood. And it was very, very bad thing in his year.
So you come west with Azadeh, and how do you find out what they're doing with Siamak?
After 3 months, he called us and said that I can understand that somebody is following me, and they do have aslahe, weapon, and I can see اون لوله چیز رو تفنگو از توی ما گفتیم نه تو خیال میکنی اینا بخوان کسی رو بگیرن میگیرن چرا بیان دنبال کنن. خب بعدا فهمیدیم که برای اینکه غیر قانونی بوده حتی نسبت به خودشون حتی نسبت به اون سیستم باز این کار اینا غیر قانونی بوده و برای اینکه قانونیش بکنن اول یه پرونده مورال برای سیامک درست کردن با یک زنی که در اونجا کار میکرد. این اولین برگ پیج پرونده است که بتونن بگیرنش. بعد بقیه چیزا رو با فورس کانفیشن ازش گرفتن. گفتن حالا یا ما بی این علت که اون زن شوهر داره و نمیدونم تو زن داری از این پرت و پلاهایی که تو قوانینشون هست سنگسارت میکنیم، ولی اگه همه چیزای سیاسی خودتو زنتو بگی ما تو رو آزادت میکنیم. اینا معمولا فریب میدن و قسم هم میخورن که ما این فیلم ها رو پخش نمیکنیم، فقط ما میخوایم اینا رو داشته باشیم برای اطلاعات خودمون. برای اینکه وقتی سیامک فهمید که پخش شده، سیامک از اون موقع گیواب کرد.
So you are in the States at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. And he is sentenced to be in jail on these trumped up charges for convictions for years. They say first they say 8 years or 10 years or something.
Yes. No, for 3 years he was inside jail, not just one jail, some jail that so far ما نمیدونیم اصلا کدوم جیل بوده، خودش هم نمیدونست. اینا انقدر زندانای غیر قانونی و شکنجهگاه دارن که خودش هم نمیدونست کجاها بوده. تا 4 ماه اون رو آزاد کردن برای اینکه به علت خیلی کارهایی که ما بیرون از ایران میکردیم 3 کشور اروپایی فشار آورده بودن. فکر میکنم انگلیس و فرانسه و همون هلند یا 3 دیگه بودن. اینا سیامک رو آزاد کردن به دروغ. بعد وادارش کردن که شکایت هایی رو که من کرده بودم از اینکه غیر قانونی بوده دستگیریش، اونا رو
از آمریکا شکایت میکردن.
از آمریکا به ایران شکایت میکردن. اینا یه چیزای دیگه شما خسته میشین اگه آدم بخواد بگه. مکانیزم هایی بود اون موقع که مثلا بهش میگفتن اصل 90 قانون کمیسیون اصل 90 قانون اساسی. من مرتب با آقای کروبی در تماس بودم که اون موقع مجلس ششم بود، اصلاح طلبات اون مجلس رفته بودن و میخواستم برگردم. آقای کروبی میگو برنگرد. میخواستم به وسیله خانم طالقانی اومده بود امریکا، یادداشت نوشتم براشون فرستادم، شفاهی جواب منو دادن که آقای خاتمی که اصلا شما این طرف ها پیدا نشه چون ما نمیتونیم کمک بهت بکنیم. پیش آقای ظریف رفتم گفتم شما من امنیت بدین، من برم ایران اقلا فرودگاه منو نگیرن، برای اینکه فایدهش چیه، من دیگه برای سیامک که نمیتونم دیگه کاری بکنم. آقای ظریف هم گفت متاسف. نه اینجا بود، نیویورک بود اون موقع.
گفت به شما
گفت که نه، گفت میتونی بری ولی فرودگاه میگیرنت. این شخصا آقای ظریف من گفتم من باید برم آقای ظریف، برای اینکه یه زندگی متلاشی شده، بچه‌های منم دارن دیوونه میشن، اونم که اونجا تنها مونده. گفت خب برو میگیرنت، بعد من سعی میکنم ساپورتت کنم. خب گفتم اینم که نشد، این به درد ما نمیخوره چون این 2 دختر جوان و تینیجر من از بین میرن. به هر حال خیلی سعی کردم، خودشون از درون کشور میگفتن نیو.
And I'm so sorry that I mean even
to talk about this. که من اشتباه کردم اومدم بیرون.
But what would you have been able to do if you were there?
Yeah, you're right. But I cannot, I cannot
this ends
convict myself.
It ends quite tragically in 2011. How do you tell us how you found out the news or what?
Just Lily was on phone with him.
Your daughter Lily?
Yeah, my daughter Lily from Canada, from Toronto, because we had organized everything for leaving Iran illegal.
For him to leave Iran?
And it was very safe because from Iqlim Kurdistan and everything was, and the hospital was, ready for برای اینکه بره اونجا بخوابه فوراً توی اقلیم کردستان. و اون تن نمیداد، میترسید، سنش بالا بود سیامک و دیگه قدرت ریسک نداشت، این های ریسک نمیتونست تحمل بکنه. به هر حال من معتقدم که خودکشی کرد، ولی معتقدم که این خودکشی به علت فشارهای منتالی بود که به هر حال از طرف حکومت برش تحمیل شد، از طرف امنیتی ها و اینکه ولش نمی‌کردن، دائما میرفتن سراغش. و دیگر اینکه از اینکه آمده بود و علیه به هر حال من دوستانش حرف زده بود، اون شرم از این اقرار اجباری یه شرم خیلی آزاردهنده‌ایه و همه اینا دست به دست تنها موند و بسیاری از دوستانش رهاش کردن. بعضی از دوستان باهاش بودن، منتها اونها هم بعد از گرفتاریای 88 همه خودشون یه جوری ترسیده بودن و دیگه سراغ سیامک نمی رفتن. واقعیتش اینه. و سیامک تنها راهی که خودش حس کرده بود براش باقی مونده همون بود که انجام داد. و به هر حال برای ما خیلی سخت بود و هست هنوز، مخصوصا برای دخترای من. احساس میکنن هیچ وقت نتونستن به پدرشون برسن، نتونستن کمکش کنن. اما گمان میکنم کار تاریخی مهمی کرد سیامک. یعنی نشون داد که این آدمایی که میان و تأیید میکنن جمهوری اسلامی جلوی تلویزیون، اینا آدمای گرفتاری هستن، خیلی زیر ضربه بودن و خب این کارش اعتراض بود، اعتراض خیلی با صدای بلند بود. یعنی خیلی صدای این اعتراض بلندتر از این بود که مثلا 100 تا قرص میخورد و میمرد. این خیلی یعنی صدای تاریخی داره از نظر هیومن رایتس.
Mehrangiz, you've been through so much. You've been through so much. That's a lot.
And that's why I think that if I didn't leave Iran, probably something happened different with that.
But you can't. Yeah, you can't. How do you?
No, I'm talking honestly with you.
I know you are, but I'm talking honestly back and saying that's the it's unfair to yourself to think that you could have done something. Yeah. I mean, there's a 40-year history of this regime acting in lawless ways, and to think that if you had stayed in Iran, somehow you would have magically made things differently. It's
Yeah, you can see my picture in this some film from, I don't know, 42 years ago. You can see that I was talking. I was very young, but I was talking about the situation of Iran, about the censorship, so I was همیشه من به هر حال صدا داشتم. I had voice. ولی قرار نبوده که من
You still have a voice.
Yeah, but this voice is not powerful like voice that we had inside Iran. You never,
I'm going to ask you about that. I won't keep you here forever, by the way. I know this has been going long, but I'll ask you about that in a second. But just on this note of all you've been through, every time I see you you're on television or you're making an appearance, you're so composed. You don't seem emotional. You really hold yourself together. How have you learned to be so? How did all of this not crush you? I mean, do you have moments at home where you just go into a corner of a room and cry and you don't let the world see it? Really? I mean, you've been through a lot.
This is my nature. Sometimes something is nature, nothing else.
Strength is your nature?
Yeah, sometimes I am very sad, but nobody can feel that. They were saying that, oh, she is smiling.
And why not? Why don't you let people see that?
This is my nature.
A moment ago when you said you think you could have done more in Iran, do you believe activists like yourself and others who have been bravely speaking out in the diaspora outside of Iran have been able to affect change in Iran in recent years? I mean, a lot of people are trying outside of Iran, but based on what you've just been saying, you think that the change has to come from within?
This is a very difficult question. We cannot predict of Iran because everything is very complicated. It's not, روشن نیست، صریح نیست. این حکومت خیلی پیچیده است، خیلی کامپلیکیتده. الان خیلی سلاح دست، اسلحه دست جوانایی که ضرورتاً نباید بود. ما زمان شاه یه همچین چیزی نداشتیم. این مشکل درسته، اونم یه حکومت خیلی منسجمی بود ولی یه دستگاه اطلاعاتی داشت. 100 تا دستگاه اطلاعاتی که نداشت. ساواکو داشت مثلا، فرض کن. هر چقدر هم بخوان بگن یه ساواکو میگن. هیچ وقت شما شنیدی مثلا بگن ما 10 تا ساواک داشتیم؟ یه دونه ساواک داشتیم. کارهای بدم زیاد کرد. این حکومتیه که اصلا برای مردم ارزشی قائل نیست. یعنی برای شهروند، برای سیتیزن ارزشی قائل نیست. فقط برای اینکه خودشو خیلی قلدر نشون بده، فقط یعنی همش همینه، غیر از این نیست. آقای خامنه‌ای که اومد، خب همه فکر کردن حالا شاید بالاخره یه درسایی از اون یکی کارهای بد اون یکی گرفته باشه. ما الان داریم میبینیم دیگه. مرگش نگرانی داره. من که معلوم نیست این همه آدمی که نشستن که بیان سر جای این قدرت‌هایی رو بیان تصاحب بکنن، همشون هم اسلحه دارن، همشون هم کانونای قدرت سیاسی هستن. اینا چجوری با هم گلاویز میشن؟ و کاش قبل از مرگ ایشون یه اتفاقی در ایران میافتاد که ما شاهد.
Do you actually think the way the Islamic Republic treats مثلا political prisoners of conscience. We see the execution still happen. Do you think it's actually worsened in recent years? یعنی بدتر شده اصلا؟
بله بدتر شده. ببینید دهه اول انقلاب ما باید کنار بذاریم چون اون کشتار دستجات سیاسی بود. این دسته های چپ، دسته های نمیدونم مجاهدین.
We chalk that up to that's part of the revolution.
اینایی که پرچم داشتن، فلاگ داشتن، میگفتن ما مثلا همشون هم در انقلاب ساپورتر خمینی بودن و بعد خب میخواستن یه سهم از قدرت داشته باشن. مهمترین دعوایی که وجود داشت این بود که این سازمان‌ها میگفتن خب این انقلاب همه ما هندل کردیم، نمیدونم هدایت کردیم، پس همه ما باید تو قدرت باشیم. وقتی خمینی معلوم شد که زیر عباش چیه، خب شروع کرد اینا رو کشتن. اینا مقاوم بودن، اینا هم دست مثل ما نبودن که بگن حالا ما میاییم و مثلا نمیدونم مقاله مینویسیم و نقد میکنیم و زندگی جامعه مدنی درست میکنیم و اینا اصلا خواستن در قدرت بیان و خب خیلی هم با ظالمانه اینا رو حذف کردن. غیر از اون دهه شما بعداً میبینین که وضعیت کمی بهتر شده. مثلا قبل از اینکه اون اصلاحات شروع بشه با همه اینکه نتایجش خیلی گرفتاری‌های دیگه به وجود آورد، ولی مثلا ما کیهان رو میگرفتیم، اطلاعات رو میگرفتیم تو صفحه های لایی. شما ژورنالیستی میدونی بی اهمیتی چیزی که تو صفحه های لایی یه جای کوچولو نوشته بود دیروز 30 نفر در زندان اوین 30 ضد انقلاب اعدام شدن، تمام. ولی بعد از اینکه خاتمی رو مردم واقعا آوردن با اون کار عجیب رای دادنشون، هرچی سکولار بود، هرچی لایک بود، هرچی هنرمند بود، آرتیست بود، رفتن بهش رای دادن. بعد از اون ما یک دوران بهتری رو شاهدیم، منتها زیر کنترل. ولی من جزو کسانی بودم که قبل از اصلاحات کار میکردم، یعنی 6 سال قبل از اصلاحات من کارم شروع کردم و من حذف نمی شدم اگر که ما وارد اصلاح طلبا. اصلا میدونین بدون تردید آدم اون موقع وارد این قبیله می شد، برای اینکه یه خورده بیشتر مردم دوستشون داشتن. اون اول مردم دوستشون داشتن و بعدم مردم دوستشون نداشتن. بنابراین ما هم دنبال اونایی بودیم که به هر حال فضای مطبوعاتی خیلی باز شده بود، نه 100%، ولی خیلی باز شده بود. مردم از ساعت 4 صبح میرفتن دم پیشخون روزنامه ها صف میکشیدن. تاریک بود هوا که روزنامه مبادا تموم بشه. این هرگز در تاریخ ایران سابقه نداشت. پس بنابراین آره دوران مختلف بهتر و بدتر شدن هیومن رایتس داریم.
But what's happened in the last few years?
خب بحث هسته‌ای بود. بحث وقتی که اینا اعلام کردن که ما داریم، البته من نمیدونم، میگن مجاهدین خلق اول اینا رو لو دادن و بعد اینا مجبور شدن بیان بگن و عضو آژانس شدن و بعد اروپا هم دنبال روی کرد از امریکا در تحریم ها. بنابراین یه ریزه ما مثلا امیدی که داشتیم به اروپا که یه خورده نگوتییشن میکرد فقط هیومن رایتس، کار دیگه نمیکرد، اونا رو هم ما از دست دادیم برای اینکه اروپا هم اومد دنبال امریکا. طبعا غرب نمیخواد ایران غنی سازی داشته باشه. از اون به بعد دیگه اینا لج با دنیا رو بیشتر پیش بردن و دائما هم گفتن خب چه حقوق بشری که ما رو تحریم کردن و نمیدونم از این حرفایی که واقعا بی ارزشه. ولی برای حکومت ظالم، برای حکومتی که میخواد پوپولیستی عمل بکنه و کار بکنه، طبیعتا این نعمت بود. اینا نعمت بود که همونطور که خمینی گفت جنگ نعمت بود، راستم گفت برای خودشون نعمت بود. این تحریم ها هم برای اینکه اینا بمونن نعمت بود، چون خودشون مظلوم در دنیا جلوه دادن.
Valley, after all this, you're still hopeful. میدونی چرا میگم؟ Because you're still speaking out. If you didn't believe there was any hope, you would stop.
شاید perhaps, but sometimes when I'm talking with myself, I judge myself that I am addicted.
Well, this is, and I'll just ask a couple more questions before I let you go. But on this question, I wanted to ask you, because, when it comes to the human rights struggle in Iran, it's not, there's people who fight for things and they can accomplish them. And this is not going to end anytime soon. This is an ongoing struggle. And as you know, people are exhausted. I mean, even when we do a show like the one we did focused on Nasrin Sotoudeh, we get feedback from some of the audience saying, we don't want to listen to this anymore. We just want happy things, You've had this long career in law. You were on the front lines of taking governments to task before and after the revolution. You've always been vocal. You've always been fighting for freedom. But there's the death of your husband, all that you've been through, the personal struggles you've had, the health issues. You keep persisting.
Yeah.
No, it's okay now. No one would blame you if you say, okay, you know what? Now I'm on a... Now it's beachside for the rest
why
of the...
I say I am addicted.
What are you addicted to?
I don't know. Because
Yes, you know. You're the smartest person I
What's
know.
that?
You know. What is it you're addicted to? Wanting to create change?
how you guess?
I'm on to you. But we're laughing. But this is, I am amazed at the energy that you continue to have for doing such difficult work.
Yeah, but now it is getting hard to me. Working. Because I think we need something more than talking and writing for changing them. And we don't have any tool for that. I don't know what's that. We cannot say the United States, come and save us. How? This is Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria. And we cannot ignore of supporting by Western countries. We cannot ignore that. Everything is full of conflict in our mind.
How do you react to the fact that our community, especially outside of Iran, is so divided about the answers to how to fix things?
We cannot have a very
Unified.
clear and unified answer. We cannot.
Why can we not? I mean, you mean...
Because opposition of this government inside and outside Iran is divided.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not united at all. Just united in one issue. They are not united either in one issue. They cannot close to each other very much. We need that. We cannot close human rights organization, Iranian human rights organization, united, believe me. Either human rights
organizations we can't agree on.
No, با هم نمیچسبن. به هم نمیچسبن. اگه خیلی بخوای دنبال کنی اون میگه اون مال جمهوری اسلامی، اون میگه اون مال نمیدونم.
خب چطوری اینو حل کنیم؟
اون مال استیت دیپارتمنت.
Is there any answer to this?
یکی پول میگه استیت دیپارتمنت به پروژه هایی داره، مثلا پول میده به کسایی که پروپوزال میدن برای فرض کن سیویل سوسایتی. خب پس چجوری باید کار کرد؟ درون ایران هم که سرکوب هست. به هر حال شما چیزی یونایتدی پیدا نمی‌کنی. حتی هیومن رایتس اکتیویستا، سازمان ها، حالا اکتیویستا انقدر مهم نیست که این همه سازمان داریم. اینا هم کنار هم قرار نمیگیرن، تبدیل کنن خودشون رو به یک جنبش حقوق بشری، حالا از آوتساید ایران باشه ولی خودشون رو تعریف کنن به عنوان یه دونه، فقط یه دونه جریان حقوق بشری که با هم راه میرن. اون سازمان خودشو میخواد بگه، اون سازمان خودشو میخواد بگه، اون یه آش شل قلمکاریه راستشه. نمیدونم شل قلمکار خوردی یا نه. خیلی خوشمزه.
It sounds like it's an ash with a lot of different things in
خیلی
it.
خوشمزه است ولی
خوشمزه. At least it tastes good. I am so honored that you've taken the time that you have to talk about your personal journey, to talk about some very difficult issues. And it is such a stroke of luck that you haven't been in Washington, D.C., that you're here in Toronto, that we could do this in person.
it was my pleasure.
If I were to ask a final question, I might say, it's been 20 years that you've been exiled from the country that of my ancestry, but that a place that I never lived in, but you did for many years. What do you miss the most about Iran?
My office. My very small office. That's it.
You just want to be in your
nothing
office
else.
working.
Yeah, because that was my identity. That very small office. I had been in very beautiful office in the United States, at Harvard, at Brown University. I don't know, everything that you were.
The long list of your accomplishments.
Long list that you were.
I mean, it's quite incredible.
No, just my office that is sold now. It's not me. But in my mind, I am sitting in my office in Tehran, میدان هفت تیر، خیابان قائم مقام فراهانی، کوچه یکم، شماره 20، طبقه 2. That's it. ایران برای من همونه. یعنی همه چیز باز میاد توی همین آفیس، چون این آفیس همه چیزای زندگی من، هم بچه ها می اومدن که بچه بودن اونجا، آزاده اونجا مشق می نوشت، خبرنگارای خارجی می اومدن اونجا، سفارتخونه های اروپایی دائما با من در تماس بودن، از تمام رادیوها با من در تماس بودن. کلاینت های منم که مثلا محکوم به داشتن می شدن به سنگسار، استونینگ، یا به اعدام یا به شلاق، اونا هم اونجا بودن. سیامک هم گاهی می اومد. پس بنابراین من همه چیزم 50 متر جاست و اون دفتری که از من گرفتن و برای همین هیچ وقت نمی بخشمشون.
Mehrangiz Kar, merci. Thank you for this.
من هم از شما.
Mehrangiz Kar, a leading attorney, professor, author, celebrated activist working towards the promotion of democracy, rule of law, and human rights in Iran. She is based in Washington, D.C., but she joined me here in the Roqe Studio in Toronto today. Wow, I'm decompressing from that interview. That I am so honored that she shared so much of herself, and that. Well, we got the microphones back on. Captain Raza Groovy Shaya, Ponta the artist, has come back in the studio as well. That last answer just there, I'm still recovering from that. I mean, that was just so beautiful. You know, she's such a storyteller.
Wow.
There was so much of that interview that felt like she was picking us up collectively and putting us on her knee and telling us a story, you know, and from the beginning of talking about her mother and grandmother. And
that was actually very interesting that she said that two powerful women in her family was her mother and her grandmother. And her mother can read Hafez and her grandmother can read Quran, and because they can read it and they can interpret it, they became popular and powerful. That's really interesting.
And quite a tradition of strong women, like I mentioned, Hoss Shar, and you know, people like Mehrangiz Kar coming from a place of strong women in their household. You know, I mean, the way she's describing the importance of the female role models. Yeah, Captain Reza, you want to speak?
Yeah, I mean, the last question was really a punch in the gut. Her answer, I just couldn't hold back tears. I'm not gonna lie to you. And it's not like because I started reminiscing about what I missed about Iran. I left when I was very young, and I don't have no attachment to it. To be perfectly honest with you, if you were to ask me that question, I'd be like, nothing. I missed Thornhill. I missed North York. I missed Young and Eglinton areas in Toronto. But her answer was just such a powerful answer, and that you can't argue with that. She misses her life, is what she missed. Something that was taken away, her identity. Identity that was taken away from her.
By the way, as someone who spent my teen years in Thornhill, there's nothing to miss about Thornhill. I really don't think. Ponta, I didn't mean to come to you last out of any lack of respect. I just I know you said you were a little nervous about talking. Do you want to say anything about what you just heard with Mehrangiz Kar?
Yeah, such an amazing story, complicated. چیزی که منو خیلی تحت تاثیر گذاشت.
What really affected you?
Was she was one of the first women who came to the street and say we don't want hijab.
Yes.
And her mother told her they will force you hijab. اینا خیلی بر من جالب بود.
Yes. Yeah.
And the story
she didn't believe it.
Prison.
She didn't believe it was going to be.
It
was going to turn out to be what it did.
You know what was fascinating though for me? I could see my mother in her, because there were moments where she's like, "That's why I made a mistake that I left Iran," and then you try to get logical and say, "But what could you have done?" She'd come back to her senses and be like, "You know what? You're right, but still, I can't convince myself that I made the right decision," and it was all because she's a mother. Her sense of motherhoodness and her being a woman and being a mother is keeping her from making.
Thank you, Reza, for speaking on behalf of mothers everywhere.
No, I'm saying before when we were supposed to have her on, I texted my mom. I said tonight's episode is going to be a good one, because she listens every now and again.
Nice.
And shout out
every now and again.
No, she actually listens all the time.
She's in Tehran, right?
She's in Shiraz.
Oh, she's in Shiraz. I really want to know what she thinks of it. Ask her after the show is posted tonight.
I will. I think she's going to get a kick out of this. Yeah.
Hey, let's. We got to move things along here. So I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about. We'll probably talk about some of the things that came up in this interview tomorrow night at our clubhouse too, at our room there. But in the meantime, it's Thursday. That can only mean one thing. He's the captain of cuisine, the culinary colonel, the Tabrizi talisman, the Farsi food meister, the Turkish tradesman. It's your chef Hoss-Zareh, and this is Roqe Hospitality.
Hi, this is your chef Hoss-Zareh, and this is Roqe Hospitality.
Hello, Chef Hoss.
Hello, John. Hello, team.
Hello.
We have Ponta the artist here today. You know, instead of our dear Keon is out for the count for now. So Ponta's here.
Hello.
Hi, Ponta John.
Hi.
Nice having you here.
Nice to listen to you. It's my first time I'm here instead of Keon, but I'm happy.
Don't worry, if Shaya can do it, you can do it.
That is the
Okay.
chef. You're finally learning.
Thank you.
You're finally learning the tone of the show. That is excellent. Good work.
Okay, see you tomorrow at Clubhouse.
Chef, I before we start, I have to say I've seen your video. I'm actually very excited about what you're talking about today. I'm posting, but let me just, on a side note, a more superficial one, comment on your looks. Your hair has grown, and you really look like the extra member of Led Zeppelin that we haven't. I mean, it's like if there was a Turkish culinary Robert Plant, you've really accomplished that look with the long hair and the, I mean, next thing we're going to find you maybe on Clubhouse doing some old metal tunes. I don't know.
Well, I'm trying to get the Captain Reza. Maybe we can work on a movie together.
Oh, there we go, man. There we go.
But yeah, I think you look great. I mean, you look like the chef rock star that you are. So listen, I see what you are going to teach us today. We've got your video set. It's called Easiest Way to Make Perfect Limu Amani, dried lime. And I was saying earlier in the show that what the amazing part of this is that I've cooked with limu amani, with dried lime before, but I always buy it. I had no idea that you could you take the lime and actually make dried lime. So I'm very eager to get to that because you do this in the video. Let's start with first things first. What is the significance of lime and, I guess, acidic elements in Persian cuisine?
Well, the first 2 points here. One is to look at the Persian foods, one of the oldest cuisine and most precise on when it comes to luxury of eating, and also thinking about the diet factor and medical factor. That's why, since the fire came to picture, acid, fat, salt, and heat. These 4 elements is on our food. And Iranian took this one the next level by generation, and especially after Avicenna, Avicenna, he wrote about that. And when we cook on the balance of the dishes. So the acid we use is acid accent the flavors of the food and beverage. And not only flavors, but has a lot of medical benefits for us. So we will talk a little later, but it's in our cuisine, and also we talked about pomegranate, barberries, sumac. You see that we are dominated by acid to not only enjoy the food, but also medical factor. And it was grown lusciously in the geographic, beautiful old Persia, is still present Persia.
Interesting. Now, I mean, you make a great case for the lime and the acid, but why dried lime?
Yes. So the old days, they were no refrigeration, also seasonal. They were 2 reasons to hold the stuff they like. One was luxury. They liked it. They want to have it. 2, for necessity for the winter. So some items came from experimental, some by accident. Lime drops on the floor and sunny day, and if it stays for a few days or 10 days, 20 days, they get dry, and people, they find out. And they say, wait a minute, we can do that one, save it for the winter. So by that, they hold this beautiful item 12 months a year, they can use it. And also when you get the dried lime, it get acid and intensify the flavor, and punching in it is absolutely beautiful.
You know, I always, when I cook for non-Iranian friends, or when I've had invited them for Qeyber or Korma Sabzi or something like that, they usually have sometimes they haven't experienced dried lime before. You know, it's like a curiosity, like, what is this? You know, because it's not used in Western cuisine as much, and particularly before you've cooked it, the dried lime, which is almost like a giant, I don't know, acorn or something. You know, it looks like a nut almost. You know, it's got this hard shell. It's very curious to see people's responses. So you've identified, I see in the video, some different techniques that they used to use or in preserving limes. Can you just explore a little bit of what the different techniques are?
Absolutely. Before I say that one, I want to say difference of the limes. Limes are from the key lime. It's expanded to the kaffir limes and desert limes, Australian limes, and there's my favorite modern one is called finger limes. That if you like, I can. Is when you break the lime, it looks like a caviar, but they're acid. It's perfect for garnish. So these are the lime around the world, but Persian limes are smaller, compared to kaffir lime or key limes. Smoother skin is thicker, so it holds it better, and no seeds. So when we dry them, and it becomes a little bit acidic and also sweeter, and that's the difference between other limes. So what I'm showing
your techniques for preserving limes or drying the lime, it can be used for any lime, right? Or does it have to be a Persian lime?
Yes, absolutely. So that's what I use, the one I bought in the United States where I am right now. So basically 3 ways of doing that one. On the video, I'm showing the first step that can go for all of them, which is that you want to wash them, salt them overnight, keep it, and the day after boil in the water and acid. But after that, if you want an old-fashioned way, just put in the sun, under the sun for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, until they dry, and then bring it to put in a shade area for another couple of weeks, and then you have the dried limes. That's the old, long way of doing it. Now, with the technology, we can do in the oven, little technique needs it, or there are special the dehydrating machine ovens. You can use it, that one. You can buy it, but you don't want to spend the money. If you have your oven fan, you can use a fan. You want to put it on the lowest temperature, and you put it there overnight. In the morning, you wake up, you have a beautiful dry lime. Or another technique I'm showing that which is as a chef's technique, you can slice them and make it like in the 20 minutes the best as a garnish for your cocktail, or grind them, or cooking.
Yeah.
So
you show all of that. You show all that in the. This is a great video, by the way. We've had. They get better each week. I think this is your best yet, because it's really instructive, and you show us all kinds of different ways that you've learned to use dried lime and how you dry the limes. I think it's like 7 minutes of an education, and really well done. Thank you for that, and new music from Shaya behind you there in the background too. I guess one thing that shocked me in the video was this idea that, people's commitment to creating great cuisine, great tastes in the past was so much deeper than now, where, we expect to go to the corner store at the bottom of our apartment building and have whatever we need available to us. This idea that you would put limes out for a month for the sun to dry them, it's amazing. It's like quite a commitment.
Yeah, exactly. Not only look at we talked about that cash. Everything was in the summer. There was a work on preserving the food for the winter, and long way to use. So they had a time, labor of love. Everything doesn't come overnight. And without technology, they use the old-fashioned way. But right now we are spoiled, which is good. We're using technology. We find a better way of doing that, faster way of doing that one. So it works out perfectly.
All right. Any questions before we let Chef Hoss go? Yeah, go ahead, Captain.
So doing it the old-fashioned and traditional way, whether it's kashkor, lime, or whatever, isn't that better as opposed to the faster processing of it, putting it in the oven or whatever? Don't you think that makes it tastier? Is that true?
100% agree with you, but because of the new health department and stuff like that, they don't allow the manufacturing. They do the old-fashioned because of they're afraid that they might be contaminated and poison, something happens. So that's why all the new commercials want done with the technology.
Ponsa, any questions about limo amani?
Actually, Chef Hoss reminds me long time ago when I was child, in my grandma's house. She made limu amani, she made shivid, she made lavashak or kashk. I remember every single time که مثلا به من میگفت دست نزنی ها، ولی خب ناخونک میزدم.
Where was that, in Tehran?
No, in Hamadan.
In Hamadan.
Yes.
So I just want to get you guys memory lane. The old days in the house, you go to, we had a beautiful garden outside, right? Our houses, everybody. You see trays of lavashak, trays of bulgurs cooked on the drying out. The herbs are under the sun drying out. The whole yard used to smell, look absolutely divine. When I think about that right now, I get goosebumps, I get emotional. I wish that those days can come back to me, but at least I have memories.
Yes. I think, as Shaya would put it, you become goosebump. Yes.
انقدر از لواشک و لیمو گفتین من آب دهنم را افتاده نمیدونم
That's
چیکار
right.
کنم.
Everyone's mouth is watering. Chef Hoss, thank you. Great work. So if you go to roqemedia.com, our website, Ponce the Artist will actually be uploading the new chef video at roqemedia.com or at our Telegram channel with Farsi descriptor there as well. Chef, we'll see you tomorrow night on Clubhouse, right? For the Roqe Town Hall?
Not tomorrow I will be there, but I'm more likely tonight.
Tonight.
We're not there, but if you want to wait.
I know you're there all the time. I know. Yeah, I'm just making sure you're there for us tomorrow night.
No, tomorrow, absolutely. I will be on. I am part of the team. I will definitely be there.
All right. That's Friday night. If you're listening on Friday, it is tonight. Thank you, Chef Hoss.
Bye,
Thank
Chef.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right, Hameen Alon after Clubhouse. He's gonna he goes from here to Clubhouse. This is full time for Roqe for today. Our website, as I mentioned, roqemedia.com is where you can find all things Roqe, including the new video from Chef Hoss and new videos that we've put up from our latest episode of Roqe. From that is the last episode of Roqe with Hoda Jara on our website. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together each week. Producer Susan, Ponce the Artist, Thoughtful Dagin, the fabulous Keon, Sabi Roham, Aghay Mehdad, Master Muhammad, Chef Hoss, Captain Reza, and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there supporting us, sharing our content. Please subscribe if you have not done so already and become a patron for $5 or $10 a month. We really appreciate that. Thanks to those of you doing that. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. Mizun Bashin.